Hi guys, welcome to Human or Athlete. We've got a super conversation today. Very excited to introduce my guest. There's a lot of stuff to introduce here, but 300 caps at least for club. European gold, World Cup gold, Olympic silver medalist, and Red Bull athlete. Felix Denayer, and obviously field hockey legend for KHC Dragons in Belgium. Yeah, delighted to have you on here, man.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. It's quite a nice intro.
I've done all right. um,
It's been quite a journey, yeah.
Yeah, talk to me about that journey. Give for the people who haven't heard it and don't know you, give us an
Yeah,
insight through
what's
that whole.
interesting about the journey is that actually when got into the national team at a pretty young age, at the age of 17, we were 13th in the world. And from there, actually, yeah, Belgium hockey grew. And 10 years later, we're now number one in the world.
Crazy.
And we achieved some of the results you just mentioned. So it's been an interesting ride. Um, so I was a bit lucky regarding the timing because I was in the under 21s trying to get into the first team at the age of 17. And at that moment, the miracle of Manchester happened actually.
No way.
Which is the Belgium team beat Germany, which were at that moment number one team in the world, defending Olympic champions. And yeah, 2 weeks before they did like inter squad games, so practice games, and they got beaten twice by a pretty big result. But then for the bronze medal, it was 3-3 with a couple of seconds to play, and we got the last second goal. The game was over, and Belgium went back to the Olympics, and it's been 32 years since that
No
happened.
way.
So that was like, yeah, something, the spark we needed to get back into the race. And then actually you had four blocks every time an Olympic cycle. So the first
Hmm.
one was close the gap, obviously with we set the top eight of the world, because once you're in the top eight of the world, every time you get invited or you qualify for the top tournaments, and every
Hmm.
time you're challenged by the best teams in the world, which allow your program as well to um, yeah, consistently develop actually also for the
Yeah.
youngsters coming in. So close the gap was the first one. Then keep the flame burning was the second
Hmm.
one. So we went to the Olympics. There obviously was a great experience, but we felt we were a bit like there as tourists, not really to perform. So we
What year was
finished
this? What Olympics was this?
2008 in Beijing.
2008. Yep.
Yeah. So the young guys that had their first experience there were actually quite motivated for the next edition to go,
Hmm.
because it's an amazing event, but also
Hmm.
to perform.
Yep.
So in London, so it was keep the flame burning. We qualified. Also with a really tight game against Spain. We were 0-2 down, but in the end we won that game 3-2 to qualify.
Amazing.
So that was yeah, really tight. But then we became fifth in London, and there
Nice.
we had actually like um, obviously we were pretty proud because at that moment we were ranked ninth in the world, and top eight was our target, because
Hmm.
if you finish top eight, you get an Olympic certificate, or
Okay.
so that was kind of the target. But we started against Germany and the Netherlands, and we just lost with one goal difference. And for the rest, actually, we played quite good games and we finished fifth. And
Nice.
so we thought like maybe this was a missed opportunity. Maybe we didn't believe we really could do it and could
Hmm.
challenge the top nations. So actually, the next cycle, Olympic cycle, was pushed to podium. So
Hmm.
then we were
Hmm.
fifth. The idea was to try to medal at the big tournaments. The first one was the World Cup, where we finished fifth again. So that was actually
Hmm.
a major disappointment.
Yep.
But then 2 years later, at the Olympics in Rio,
Mm.
we played our first final, won the silver medal, which was yeah, an amazing event for us, a dream come true. Lots of emotions in semifinals when we beat the Dutch, which have been
Yeah.
yeah, a leading nation throughout
Hmm.
the history of the sport. So I think those emotions were actually the how do you say it? We went through too much emotions after
Mm.
reaching the
Yep.
final, and that was one of the factors that um, yeah, was a bit the reason that we didn't do the details right in the final and we lost. And so a bit the same story, like growing every time. Sometimes they say you need to lose a final first before you can win one.
Yeah.
So the next cycle, we said, okay, now we're gonna name it pole position. The idea is to be number one. So it took us some time because we lost 6 finals in a row.
Wow.
But in the end, at the World Cup in 2018, we were finally able to reach the gold medal, which was also a big relief because at a certain moment the press and everything were starting to call us the silver generation. Which obviously at a certain moment brings pressure and you start doubting yourself because you think maybe we're never going to do it with this generation. We should be able to do it, and the World Cup was obviously a relief. And then 1 year later we had the Euros in Belgium where also we won the gold, which wasn't actually that easy because in the semis we were also 2-0 down against Germany. But that's probably one of the best games we ever played on the pitch and the atmosphere around because, we were surrounded by a couple of thousands, I think 10,000 Belgians. We made a comeback in the second half. Apparently the noise that they recorded there was louder than a Boeing taking off, which was cool a cool comparison they made.
That's crazy.
And it was that was sick.
Wow. Where do I even start? That's incredible. Who did you lose to in the Olympic final? As I want to kind of
Argentina.
Argentina.
Argentina, which it wasn't a surprise that they were there, but we were both a bit the underdogs. And they had the generation where they won the World Cup under 21s with a couple of years before that. So a lot of experience, and they just managed the details better. For a detailed example is they had 2 short corners, scored both of them. We had 6 and didn't score 1. And details make the difference. So it was 3-2 till a couple of seconds from the end, and then we got our goalie out, and in the end they scored on the counter and they won 4-2. But it felt like we didn't lose to a better team, but more that we made some errors and didn't really got the details right. But still until today. If you have 2 seconds, I'll show you. Until today, this one is pretty nice. So
wow,
Rio.
That's crazy. Haha. That's sick.
It's just beautiful medal, pretty heavy as well, which I like because it's kind of the symbolic behind it that it took blood, sweat, and tears. So it's something I'm very proud of as well. Even though as a top sports athlete, you always look up. So now we became second. And we're preparing for the Olympics in Tokyo, and there obviously our ambition is to do better than last time. So
that would be amazing.
Won't be easy, but that's the ambition.
So you talk about obviously being underdogs, and for so long you were kind of like out of the picture, and like you said, in a way, there's kind of that whole thing about are we good enough? Is that kind of thing? How did it take that progress to kind of build the belief that we can be the best in the world? Because obviously it's a long journey. Some people ask me what's the secret, and I don't think there is one secret. I think, like I told you, you have to go through different stages as a group, and we went through all those stages, also guided by different coaches that every time took us a step up. And I think what we did well in the last stage is that for example, our coach that is from New Zealand installed some values in the team culture that one of the taglines is going from a team of stars to a star team. So really putting the team first instead of the individual, because obviously you're all the best individuals of the country. You get together in the team,
doesn't mean that the team performs that well. So one of our um, advantages as a small country is that we're small, that we can train easily together.
Yeah, true.
So instead of seeing it as a disadvantage, we saw it as an advantage. Building a circle of trust. It's not
Hmm.
because we all wear the same jersey that you're a real team. So how do you invest in each other to become a real team, to specialize yourself as an individual, but try to, if everybody is able to do that and you can match the
Hmm.
puzzle, then you can leverage the team, which was also something. And then leave the shirt in a better place is also something
Oh, I like it.
that's always been important for us. And the idea is that whatever you receive in this um, as a sportsman, it's the shirt. You get it. Try to add to that legacy, and the
Hmm.
moment you hand it over to the next generation, yeah, hopefully you've added to the shirt. And now with the World Cup win, we have a little star
Hmm.
above the logo. So literally, we added value to the shirt,
Yeah.
which is quite cool.
And you literally kind of did that in itself by
Mm,
each kind of 4 years getting better and better and better, and obviously even in
yeah.
the World Cups. Um, in that environment, like obviously, I don't know kind of how much rotation and stuff like there is between the older players, but you've been there so long, and
Mm,
obviously you've kind of come through it all. How have you kind of seen yourself in that environment to kind of lead it? I know you're captain of the KHC Dragons. I wasn't quite sure if you're
mm,
captain of Belgium and stuff like that because I've seen you leading the
mm,
team out, but I wasn't sure.
mm.
Um,
Yeah,
but
sometimes.
yeah, how
Yeah.
do you see yourself in that environment?
I mean, as an individual, how do you progress?
Or
Um,
how? Yeah, how do you like? Obviously, you've got the older one now, so you've got a kind of
yeah,
more of a
yeah,
leadership role. But as you were coming
yeah.
through, how did you
Yeah, I
change?
think I like to see it as also different steps in a career, and as a young athlete, I think you start with a dream
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. So you get a dream where you want to go to. Then you start training at an athlete, and hopefully one day you can become a role model.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then when you reach that, for me, it's how can you live with a legacy? So there are
Mm-hmm.
different stages, and I'm yeah, getting closer to the end than I am at the beginning. So I'm not saying I'm old, but oh, I'll probably have to turn 31. But so you go through different stages, and what's cool is that I've obviously received a lot from the club at KHC Dragons, where
Mm-hmm.
I've played since I was 5 years old. I've always like the environment you talk about is so important. Sometimes people ask me what should I do to become the best athlete or the best version of myself. I think it's find the best environment for yourself to be
Mm-hmm.
able to thrive or to perform.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really lucky that once my club always was very ambitious. So they always were able to attract or develop top players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been supported by really top players that pushed me as a young kid. Same with the national team, where when I arrived when I was 17 years old only, I really got yeah um, a lot of players with open arms trying to get me involved, trying to empower me. Also the coaches. So for yeah, a really basic example is when you're 17 years old, you get on the pitch, in the midfield. Um, Coaching and talking is quite important.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't do that when I was younger, but then the
Mm-hmm.
coach told me, "It's like, look, if you wanted to go to the Olympics, you'll have to start talking. Otherwise, I don't need you." And
Oh.
stuff like that is when you really make big steps, because it's also one of the coaches that watched a lot of individual clips with me, like looking at my body position, not receiving close, but receiving open. So
Yep.
really in detail, try to uh, get the standard process. Also try to work a lot with feedback. What I
Mm-hmm.
don't maybe don't see enough with young athletes is they
Mm-hmm.
try to perform, but don't always look back on their
Yep.
performance. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
how did it go? How did I plan to perform? what did I end up with, especially in team sports.
Yep.
It's not because the team won or lost that you as an individual did a good or a bad job. So yeah, it's been an interesting process. And then so now because I have that experience, I'm trying to give back what I received. Um, and yeah, I try to lead by example.
Yep.
Try to be the best. Not
uh,
saying I'm the best, but just trying to be the best. And I think that's if you have that mentality, you lead by example. I think people around you can drive as well.
Yeah, I like the communication. It's very similar in football. It's like the confident ones, the ones who are most comfortable on the pitch, you can then
Mm.
focus on talking and leading and stuff like that. And then if you're not as confident, why not try talking? And then you
Mm.
kind of create that confidence in itself because you worry less about your performance and stuff like that, and it becomes a lot more comfortable. So I definitely kind of
Yeah,
understand you there. And the opening closing is very similar to football as well in how you receive it. So I I,
yeah,
I get that
exactly.
well.
Do you play in
But
midfield as well, or
yeah, midfield, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Either
So
defensive or trying to receive in the pockets,
yeah,
so it's similar, isn't it, in that way?
yeah,
But
we say,
obviously,
for example, play to space. Yeah.
yeah, it would
So
be
that's
so
a
similar.
nice quote. Is play to space. Yeah, but if you don't know where the spaces are around you, then it's difficult
Hmm.
to play to space. Now with communication, try to have cue-ins with your strikers before you get the ball, so you can play faster than
Hmm.
when you receive it. And so it's all details, but those details matter at the highest level.
100%. That reminds me of Guardiola, who always says you never play to feet, always play into
Mm.
space so that you play
Mm.
forward. And like that's
Yeah,
whatever sport like that is, it
yeah,
applies so much with that, just a mentality
yeah,
in a way.
yeah.
Um, why obviously you've been at KFC since you were 5.
Hmm.
Why have you decided to stay in one place? Like that's
Yeah.
kind of unheard of in
Well,
football.
I told you already that I've been pretty lucky to be born and raised at the club
Yep.
because
Hmm.
it's a big club and because they've been really ambitious over the last years. I've personally always challenged them as well, like they
Yeah.
challenged
Like
me.
it.
Like telling them that we should try to be the best and
Hmm.
always try to push the benchmark and get the best players in. And so at a certain moment, we were really the leading club in Belgium. We won 4 titles in a row, which was quite impressive.
Wow.
And then that year, which was 3 years ago, 10 players decided to either quit or go and play abroad,
Okay.
which is a lot, 10 players in
Hmm.
1 year. So
Yep.
since then, we've been like kind of through a rebuild phase.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, we're getting there slowly. So the first year we finished fourth, which was just not good enough because we were hoping to get in the top 3 spot because then you get
Hmm.
a Champions League ticket. It's a
Okay.
Euro
Yep.
Hockey League ticket. Um, yeah, last year obviously with COVID we finished after the first round. We were third, which was quite okay, and now we were finished fifth after the first round, and we're now battling to get into the semifinals. So
Hmm.
even though yeah, we lost a lot of important players, what's interesting and nice to see is that with the culture of the club, we're trying to continue to hold on the same values and the
Hmm.
culture, and hopefully through the generations, it will um, be a platform where the team can yeah get results. So that's always been the case, and the strategy of the club is always to try to have a couple of really big players, and
Okay.
around that try to give some space also for young potentials of the home club
Hmm.
to also make that next step. So one of the
Hmm.
ambitions is always from the club is always to get the own youth players into the national team, and if they do that, it means that the club is doing a good job as well. So
Okay.
if you can deliver one per generation, you're doing a
Hmm.
good yeah good job as a club.
I love it. It's yeah. It's so in a way it's so similar to football, which I'm learning
Mm.
about. Talking of values, like you mentioned, in that environment that you're building the teams and even at the club as a whole, what are the values that you look for kind of as a team
Mm.
that we've got to
Hmm.
go out and build. But
Yeah.
also, if you're looking at the young players coming through and stuff, what do you kind of value in them as individuals that you want to kind of like, okay, be more like, or keep this in yourself, or try and be more expressive, or whatever?
Mm.
What are those kind of things?
Well, I think there's like team values,
Yeah.
because you touched a couple of interesting topics. So team values, we have, for example, the logo of dragons is in hoc signo vinces in Latin. It means in this sign you shall conquer.
Mm-hmm.
So we always try to conquer, and I think the ambition of the club is always to try to be the best.
Yeah.
Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't, but at least we try. I think that's an important vision. As for our team, we have like a quote that's been there for a couple of years, and it's a team above all a team.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that yeah, with the successes we had, every year new players come in and they expect like, oh yeah, now I'm a dragon, now we're gonna win. And every year we have to go through the same process. It's not because you wear the jersey now that it's gonna happen. You're gonna make it happen. You have to make it happen,
Mm-hmm.
not the jersey.
Yep.
And so that's an interesting thing about the culture, that you have players that have been through that process and new players that coming in, that you can take them on the same road, which
Mm-hmm.
is quite interesting. And then some basic values is yeah, working attitudes.
Yep.
So always working hard, being really relentless. I think if you have that, what I think is at the biggest stage, you don't exceed your performance, you fall to your habits. And that's something that I try to also install at trainings, for example, is if you train really hard and you train with really big expectations, then the moment you really have to perform, you actually just do what you normally do at training.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something, being humble. For me, that's never overestimate yourself. Really
Mm-hmm.
be humble, respect the opponents, and try to be the best. So those are some of the core values we really
Mm-hmm.
cherish.
I like that. I like the obviously train how you play. It's some people
Mm,
say it's cliche, but it's one of the baseline things that exists
mm,
now, like in a way, and even that work attitude and everything. It's crazy how obviously it's kind of blown up and become trendy from like Michael Jordan, David Goggins, and stuff like that, and it's
mm,
all about how
mm.
much you can do. But also kind of off the pitch, how do you kind of where does your mind go? Where do you slow down? Because it's all about doing, doing, doing on the pitch. But where
Mm.
do you kind of go, whoa, like let's like take a step
Yeah,
back.
that's also an interesting process I had to go through as a young athlete. Is So obviously you want to become the best version of yourself on and off the pitch.
Hmm.
So what people see and what you have to sacrifice to be able to be on that pitch is not, it's black and white.
Yeah.
So people see
Hmm.
probably only 5% of what you do on the pitch in big
Yep.
tournaments. But being an athlete is 365 days, and the
Hmm.
Olympics is not every 4 years, but it's
Hmm.
every day. So those are kind of things we discussed as well. Is how can you be an athlete 365 days, even in a program with the national team, for example? It's probably only 20% of the time that we're together. So
Yep.
80% of the time when you're on your own, outside of the environment of the team, that is
Hmm.
where you can also make really big gains. Because if the whole team has good habits, then even in the 80%, we're gonna improve
Hmm.
as individuals. So that's one thing. Our coach also came, our new coach, Shane McLeod, came in with kind of a quote like, better people make better lines. And so we are the red lines. And
Hmm.
the idea is that if you feel better outside of the pitch, you'll be able to perform better on the pitch as well.
Hmm.
And finding that balance hasn't been always easy. So, for example, I mentioned to you already, like in 2014, we became fifth on the World Cup. It
Yep.
was the first time we said we wanted to medal at a big tournament. And I had kind of health issues because I was doing too much.
Hmm.
On the pitch, I was putting too much pressure on myself. Outside of the pitch, I was studying at the university. I was moving. I was doing too much at the same time, and I
Hmm.
wanted to do everything at 100%.
Hmm.
Which at the certain moment, my body just said, "Yeah, it's enough." And I
Yeah.
couldn't speak anymore. My vision got blurred. I
No
got
way.
dizzy, and yeah. So I had to learn that actually, in order to be able to perform, how I see it now visually is that your career is like a marathon, but
Hmm.
you should run with the mindset of a sprinter. So
Okay.
every time have small targets, try
Yeah.
to hit those targets, but also take the rest to be able to hit the next target again. And if you do that consistently, in the long run, you will
Hmm.
be able to make steps. So that's been important to me as well.
Yeah, I think it's especially in modern society, it's like we want everything now in a way. Like,
Mm,
businesses focus on the quarterly goals and will do anything to reach that goal or that one game and sacrifice a lot of like the next year for that one game or that one, that one goal. When if you look at it kind of from an infinite perspective or a marathon perspective, it's about the development. If I keep getting better, then everything will come in the end, regardless. If I keep growing and developing, then at some point the results will come.
mhm.
Um, with that kind of how important is it for you to kind of, I don't know, be present in like kind of life on the pitch, but also it's kind of that thing which is like we give it everything on the pitch and then we have to recover, but
Mm.
then we're kind of like exhausted, but not like it's that whole kind of transition of mindset from giving it absolutely everything to then kind of what do I do now? How do you approach that?
You mean the downtimes?
Yeah, just like that
Yeah, it's not
mindset
easy
difference.
because you're like I listened to a podcast of LeBron James, for example, about performance, and he said sleep is the number one performance enhancing drugs.
Love it. Wow.
So, and I find that actually quite interesting. So,
Mhm.
rest and sleep is so important to be able to perform and to
Mhm.
get the best out of your body. Um, but it's not always easy. I don't find it easy to just relax and do nothing. So it's trying to find a perfect balance. So I try to find a perfect balance between sports, study or work or a
Mhm.
project, and family, friends. So social life.
Yep.
So that triangle, try to be find a good balance in it, because if that balance is there, I just feel good. And I also learned that rest is something you should plan.
Okay.
So, because if you just leave it open, I'm gonna fill it with either a call or a podcast or an interview or,
Yeah.
but sometimes just plan to do nothing or
Mhm.
plan to watch a game, relax, to watch some clips or, um, yeah, listen to your body. It's so important.
Yeah, like I remember seeing a quote that if someone said if you can do absolutely nothing for a whole afternoon, then you've kind of got self-discipline and self-mastery.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah,
like, that's like that is like that sounds so hard. Like when you've got
yeah.
kind of active people like this, it's like that is one of the hardest things possible. Obviously you've mentioned studying. Why did you decide to obviously to do a degree? I think it was in economics, right? Why
Mm.
do that as alongside sport?
Well, yeah, I've always been growing up. My parents always said it was important to study next to my sporting career because you
Yep.
never know what happens with a sporting
Mhm.
career. And I told you like being able to develop yourself as a person will also
Mhm.
develop you as an athlete.
Mhm.
So I decided to study economics. I struggled actually at the start because hockey at that moment wasn't particularly big in
Mhm.
Belgium.
Yep.
So like the framework to help top athletes to be able to combine both wasn't really there. So I struggled to find a good balance. So at the start, I just said, yeah, I'm just gonna do it like everybody else. But I forgot that actually I had already had a full-time job being a top sport
Yeah.
athlete. And so the first years weren't exactly easy. I explained you like the example of the World Cup.
Yep.
But after that, I found quite like a good balance where I could study, but also take rest. Don't put
Hmm.
too much pressure regarding the time of my studies. So now was a study of 4 years. I finished it in 7.
Nice.
But
Hmm.
obviously, in between that period, I also had 3 Olympics, a
Yeah.
couple of World Champion Euros. So the experience as a person that I got from my top sports career so far has been so enriching, and that's something that yeah, maybe people underestimate.
Hmm.
Being able to work together with a team, being able to work together to an objective, being able to receive and give feedback. That's yeah, something you don't necessarily learn at the university, where you just have to
Hmm.
uh, fight your books and then
Yep.
get a good result. So I think a combination is actually really healthy.
Yeah, and
So that motivated me to combine both.
yeah, it's crazy because, for example, in my environments in football, to do a degree alongside football is one of the craziest things anyone could ever
Mm,
do. Like, it's the complete opposite. I mean, there's different reasons why, and the money obviously comes into it so
mm,
early that people would be,
mm.
why would I do that? But I think that humility to just go, yeah, like I'm gonna take my time. I'm gonna do something to keep this balance.
I
Um,
think sometimes it also helps with pressure
mhm.
because if you're 100%, for example, only into football, whenever you have a small injury, like your whole world would
Mhm.
crash.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have something on the side, a couple of good friends, good family, you have a study where you can also reflect on something different than just a ball,
Yeah.
which obviously you're passionate about it, but sometimes it's just good to get your mind to something else to be able to think about something else just for a moment.
Exactly. It takes.
So yeah.
I think that there's a big myth that having a university degree or having a project on the side will take away from your performance on the pitch. But like you just kind of said before, it's the opposite. It helps you,
Mm,
and obviously it's brilliant to see, like, obviously a top national team coach emphasizing the importance
mm,
of being human first, and kind of like then everything will come together as performance and as a team. Like you just said about kind of the social skills and the emotional intelligence, can you kind of go into kind of more details as to how important that is, and what, even as a more of a leader, what do you focus on?
mm. Well, the interesting part of a team sports, obviously, is that you have a lot of different individuals,
Yeah.
and the interesting part is that everybody has a different character.
Hmm.
So what is interesting is when you try to reach a common goal, is that there are different paths or different ways to reach the top, and I think it's not your way or the highway. And
Hmm.
so if you understand the other individuals, you can also respect their way of getting to that goal,
Hmm.
and you can even help each other. So that's one thing. And what also helps is communication on a pitch is vital.
Hmm.
If you have, for example, an extrovert and an introvert communicating in a pressure situation and you don't know each other, it's gonna add more pressure.
Yep.
Whereas if you know each other well, you create a relationship actually together where you respect each other, then feedback will be received on an all other level.
Hmm.
And then the fact that I'm an extrovert and maybe I'll be a bit too direct at first, but if after the game I'm open to receive feedback, or an introvert would ask me like, yeah, it was quite harsh what you said. Did you mean it like that? And you have an open discussion, you talk it through, and then next time you can deliver the same message, maybe a bit different, but still direct, because the end result is that the message should come across,
Yep.
and that the team as a whole moves in the same direction.
Hmm.
And that's sometimes a challenge. Is there are a lot of different solutions to a problem, for example, tactically, but the idea is that everybody does the same.
Hmm.
If everybody does the wrong thing, it's probably even better than doing three different good things.
Yep. Mm-hmm. No. Yeah.
And so that process of working with different individuals is really interesting, I
Mm-hmm.
find,
Yep.
and super important as well to be able to get the best out of every individual.
I think it takes a lot of awareness to kind of to evaluate how people are, and I think that's
Mm.
really interesting that that's something that obviously you think about, and okay, how do we get the best out of him or her, like, in that situation. But just as important, I think, is obviously how you understand yourself. How has that kind of
Mhm.
process been?
Mm.
Because like, understanding, okay, this works for me, this doesn't, and building that self-awareness.
Yeah, so what's interesting is like we did different personality tests.
Okay.
And that's interesting because you'll get a result and you will learn that it's not what you are black and white, but it's more your preferences in
Mm-hmm.
pressure situations. So an example is I'm more an extrovert, but when pressure is high and I try to coach the team in a certain way, it's not happening. And I'm in a pressure situation, I could go into an introvert and
Mm-hmm.
just get really isolated and
Yeah.
just say like, if it's not my way, then just.
Yeah.
But then I lose my ability to coach and to add value, and so the fact that you start to know yourself, you will be able to reflect even in pressure situation, and you will be able to try to get the best out of yourself even in that moment because you
Mm-hmm.
know how you would act in your best moments.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would also like to add is that it's not something you would do a personality test, you would get the report, and you'll go like, "Oh, that's interesting. Let's move forward now." It's an ongoing
Mm-hmm.
process, even with the team. And what an interesting thing we did actually with the group is we did those kind of tests, and we also did a workshop where we did speed dating. So we just a row with all, and we've been knowing each other for 10 years. So we were like, yeah, do we really need to? But then we had the assignment that you had to say something positive about the
Mm-hmm.
player in front of you and a work on.
Okay,
So
I like
something you
it.
say like, I think you could do this better, and
Yeah.
you only had 30 seconds. So after every 30 seconds, you would swap. And the interesting part is that you didn't have enough time to talk about it at that time.
Yeah.
But after that, we went for lunch, and then you saw all those little conversations happening. And
Expanding. Yeah.
yeah, an interesting one was a player told me, "Yeah, I really like that you always say what you have to say,
Mm-hmm.
but on the other hand, as a work on, don't always say what you say." So it was like, oh, okay, thanks for that, but yeah. So and yeah, that's information you can work with.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, when it's a team meeting, don't be too direct to an individual, especially a youngster, but
Yeah.
maybe talk to him individually before after that
Mm-hmm.
meeting, so
Yeah.
he doesn't have the pressure of all the coaches, all the other players, but you kind of build a relationship and you really try to help him to make that next step. So those kind of yeah uh, processes to become a better team together is
Mm-hmm.
something I find really interesting.
It's so cool. Like, I'm super impressed hearing all about this. That this is like obviously how what you guys are focusing on, and there's such a big big
Mm,
focus on it. Like, in a way, and I think from my experience, and obviously I'm not playing for England, but
mm,
football's quite far behind that sort of thing. There
mm.
was a book I read about called Creativity by, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name, the
Yeah.
really long name, and he said it was the ability to have creativity in these moments was
Mm,
the of able to switch from extrovert to introvert, to switch from being seeing yourself as incredibly intelligent but also to see yourself as naive, and so to be able to be
mm,
completely flexible to how you see yourself, because then by then you're not boxing yourself into like, this is my, like, this is how I see myself. And so obviously, like, that's your ego as to how you see yourself. it's crazy to see the team is pretty much everyone's so quick and easy to put their egos aside and just be open
Mm.
and humble. How like has that been easy to kind of like do because people are just kind of like yeah so open to that.
Um, what was quite interesting actually is just before our coach Shane McLeod, what we were in the stage where we were losing finals, but
Yeah.
we weren't able to make that last step. Um, he came in and he said at that moment actually the press said, yeah, we're lacking leaders, like really somebody that yeah, I don't know what they were looking
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
but and he came in and he said, I don't see that as an issue. I think everybody here is a leader.
Hmm.
You just don't have the right platform to be able to use your strengths. So what he did is, again, we worked as a group. What are the talents? What are the strengths of everybody?
Hmm.
And then he assigned different tasks to different players in different moments. So, for example, I'm more like um, uh, factual,
Yeah.
less emotional.
Yeah.
So he would say, yeah, in pressure situations, you should talk to the group. For example, just before the game, just when you have somebody that goes like, yeah, we have to play for the nation, for a heart, for
Hmm.
all. So it's not really who I am. So that's better for somebody else. And then
Hmm.
everybody like that had a task. You had communicators, you had supporters, so more like introverts just trying to do their job really well,
Yeah.
whereas others would try to pick up a message from the bench and try to
Hmm.
spread it. Um, and so, yeah, that's interesting because you get better at your job as well.
Yeah.
So I would start talking in pressure situations. We would come huddle up, come together, and I would start talking about a lot of different things because you want to add as much value as possible.
Hmm.
But actually, after you go like, yeah, you split up again and you go like, whoa, that was so much information. So then we split it up again. We said, okay, just name a ball, name something. What are we going to do on the ball? What are we going to do off the ball? And what's the time management?
Hmm.
Pretty simple. On the ball, we get structure. Want to play on the outside. Off the
Hmm.
ball, we want to play high press, frontal, man to man.
Hmm.
And off the ball, okay, it's 5 minutes to play. We trust the process for now. With 2 minutes to play, we might change something.
Brilliant.
And so then at least you get a message. Also, the other guys know that the message will come from a certain players, so everybody's
Hmm.
listening. And you, after the huddle, everybody goes out with the same ideas, which is actually the most important part.
Yeah. Yeah, you've really like broken down everybody's strengths and like you said the identity to each player and
Mm,
assigned them
exactly.
their position like not physically but their position kind of socially and emotionally. It's brilliant. With Tokyo coming up, um what's your plan and what are the perspectives, not probably tactically but kind of yeah in this approach.
It's always also kind of a balance, not to start that process too soon because the
Hmm.
bigger now our group is pretty big, and the closer you will come to the Olympics, yeah, the closer we get to the final selection,
Yeah.
and the more you can really work into the details. So that's a process. We still have the European Cup as well, just
Okay.
before the Olympics, which is going to be an interesting one because all the teams will want to be in great form, but it will also be a bit of poker because you don't want to show everything, but
Yeah,
still
for
want to
sure.
have a good feeling going
Yeah.
into the Olympics.
Hmm.
So that's going to be definitely interesting. Um, but yeah, to give you an example, before the World Cup, we organized team building led by the players. And we did yeah, a couple of different things. For example, we got woken up by para commandos,
Yeah.
and we did yeah, a whole yeah, different yeah, in the night we had to run, and then with the trees, and then carrying somebody like a wounded guy
Yeah.
on a little bed, which actually is super difficult through water and when you don't see anything, and
Wow.
yeah, all those things just add to creating a group, because then you talk about leave no man
Mm-hmm.
behind. Actually,
Yeah.
that's not that easy as you just saying it, because
Mm-hmm.
um, we experienced it. So going through all those kind of experiences brings a team together as well. So what we
Builds a lot of
also
trust.
try to do is go through what if scenarios.
Okay.
So what's going to happen? And really nice example is that before the Olympics in Rio, our coach prepared a workshop that he simulated actually a press conference or a gathering after the quarterfinal of the Olympics where we lost.
Mm-hmm.
And so we came in the Olympic Training Center, and he started the day with like, "Yeah, guys, I'm sorry, but we've trained now for more than 10 years. Our dream was to medal at the Olympics, but we were not able to win the quarterfinals. Congrats on your effort, but it's gonna be in 4 years." And we were like, "Whoa, this is real!" Like suddenly you get hit by,
Yeah.
"Okay, we're really close, and this is our dream." So the workshop he did was like, "Okay, we're losing 1-0 to India because he thought was could be India in the quarterfinals. How do we react during the break?"
Mm-hmm.
And so we went through different processes. So what if that happens? What if that happens?
Yeah.
How do we are we going to react? Do we stick to the plan, or do we change directly? Or so it was a whole process that if in the pressure situation, um, we would go through those different scenarios. What would happen? Now, 3 months later, we're at the Olympics. We're playing quarterfinals. We're playing India, and we're losing 1-0 at
No
halftime.
way.
Yeah, it was crazy. So we came in and we were like, "What is this?" So we were smiling at each other because it was like meant to be. So instead of being in a crazy pressure situation, we were like in control. And so we won the game 3-1 in the end. We came back and we just
Amazing.
yeah. So that was quite impressive, I have to say.
He wasn't a fortune teller, this guy, was he?
Yeah, it's crazy.
One of my questions was like, what's because obviously I don't know an incredible amount about field hockey, but it was what was like what is the mental side to hockey, and it's funny because just kind of seeing these stories and these experiences you're giving me and your
Mm.
understanding of the team environment, it's crazy that obviously I don't need to ask the question anymore because it seems so important and
Yeah,
such
it's a
a
big
big
part.
change. Yeah, and would you say that's one of the biggest things that has evolved? Obviously, you talk about your new coach, but
Mm.
like, would say that's one of the biggest things that has evolved over the last 15 years?
Well, I think we had to go through different stages. And obviously, you want to be the fittest team in the world. You
Yeah.
want to be tactically the best. You want to create an own DNA. So, what was interesting is like leading up from 13th in the world, leading up to the
Mm-hmm.
top. What you do first is you look at the best teams in the world and you
Mm-hmm.
try to copy what works well for them. So you try to be as fit as Australia. You try to be as technical as the Dutch. You try to have the same structure as the Germans. And
Mm-hmm.
but at a certain moment, you become fifth in the world, and you're only copying the top teams, but you're trying to beat them at their own game, actually.
Yeah.
So at that moment, we're like, yeah, if we really want to push, we should probably create our own DNA
Yeah.
and our own culture. So that's something that we set up. And regarding the mindset, it's been so important, and I think the coach that came in was the right person at the right time
Mm-hmm.
at that moment. So in 10 months' time, it changed a group that was that felt like a machine, but not in the without creativity.
Yeah.
And he was able to install like structure, but with room for air where athletes could also express themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been only a small change because it was the same team. But in 10 months' time, we went from fifth in Europe at Euros, which was a disaster,
Mm-hmm.
to winning a silver Olympic medal.
Yeah. Would you say that like all those all those changes and all those losses and stuff like that are a key component in like getting to where you've got?
Definitely being able, to reflect and and to bounce back from
Mm-hmm.
losing a game. But what our coach actually showed us as well is that yeah, in a athlete as an athlete or as a in that environment, you always have to be strong, and at least
Mm-hmm.
that's the perception. But he showed that actually sometimes being vulnerable is also quite strong,
Mm-hmm.
because if you want actually to reach something together, you'll have to go through things together. And he showed that that's actually showing that side of yourself can actually be a real strength in into a team, because then you start to build real trust. And we had some challenges actually in the World Cup, because one of our best players um, got really sick, for example, and he honestly almost died on the pitch. In the end, specialists took him in a private plane, um, not home yet because it was too far.
Mm-hmm.
But just before leaving, he said, "Look, I'm yeah so sad I have to leave, even though his life was on the line,
Mm-hmm.
because I've been here with you on that process for so long, and I
Oh.
know you're gonna win this." And so I'll still be behind you, and I'll watch it because I know you're gonna win this thing.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of days later, just before the semifinals against England, one of our other midfielders got a phone call during the night, and he said he lost his father.
Oh.
So the day after he came into the meeting room. I get goosebumps now. He just opened himself up, and he said, "Yeah, I lost my father. I want to be here with you guys because we're gonna do something special here together,
Mm-hmm.
and I know he'll be up there, and he'll be watching. He'll be proud." And if you go through those kind of moments as a group, yeah, something special happens.
Yeah, that power of vulnerability. Wow. And I saw somewhere that, and this is also another crazy kind of similar thing, was that um, in moments of sadness or kind of vulnerability or sensitivity, you had heightened like motivation, you had better
Mm.
awareness of what, like realistic awareness of what was going on, and you were all also way more possible to give to others, to be happy with others, and to kind of want to look after other people. And that's
Mm.
crazy because obviously it's not what we always expect. And like you just said, that when things go wrong and people are put in that position where they have to kind of make those really big decisions around the team and around themselves that are normally in very difficult positions, that's what
Yeah,
makes the team. So
yeah,
it's crazy to see.
yeah.
um I've got to
We
kind of
say share the love. That's one of our
ha.
and it came about when we were in Rio. Actually, we were playing Brazil, which at that was like an underdog team.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that's not easy because you're expected to win,
Yeah.
and actually sometimes it creates more frustration
Mm-hmm.
than, even though you will win the game, but you want to smash them.
Yeah.
But instead of trying to really prepare, like trying to hit 10 or more, our coach said just try to share the love. And at that moment we scored 12, and I think 11 different players scored,
No
which
way.
was quite amazing. And there, yeah, that was then the start of the story of share the
Yeah.
love, and then something
And
that
what
stayed.
I assume it wasn't sharing the love with Brazil.
No, no, yeah. But yeah, just be respectful, but try to play your own game, share love together, and yeah, enjoy the game. And also, your success is my success. So
Mm,
we talk about the team. It's like the defense is um, they set the tone, the midfield is the engine, and the strikers finish the job. So
hmm.
if everybody does his role well, if a striker scores, it's actually also the goalie that scores. And if you
Hmm.
can install that culture, then you can really start to make a difference as a team.
It seems like you've created an incredible culture, and obviously you've been a vital part of it.
Mm,
Playing that what if game that you mentioned before, if we come across kind of, let's say, Tokyo semifinals, and
mm,
you're not having a great game, what do you do in that moment for you when kind of there's a little bit of panic, all
mm.
these different kind of things? What do you do?
Yeah, we talked about it. It's going back to your habits and going back to your fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
So what sometimes I used to tell myself before a big game is like, man, I have to be brilliant here. I have to make a difference. I have to do
Mm-hmm.
this. And now I actually do the opposite. I break it down and just would go like, okay, what's my basic job? What am I good at? Because that's what we work with individual athletes, try to position them in positions where
Mm-hmm.
they're good at doing something. So go back to your basic game. And if you do that, you're going to add value to the team.
Mm-hmm.
Because if everybody, for example, plays a 7 on 10, then we're going to be pretty difficult to beat.
Mm-hmm.
And if everybody does that, depending on where space is going to open, I think that is also one of the strengths we have now with Belgium hockey is that we have strengths everywhere on the pitch. So everybody can make a difference. So it's very difficult to close one option because if you close one option, another option will open up,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of our strengths. So and then when it is your moment to play to get to a 9, it's yeah, then you'll play your 9, but try to be consistently at what you're good at, and you
Mm-hmm.
still add value. And I
Yeah.
think that's the challenge is to be consistently good.
Yeah, and that seems like it's, yeah, amazing advice. I think, like you said, going back to, okay, if I'm a runner, this is what I'm going to run, and I run 90 minutes box to box, and I
Exactly.
play that, and then the other things fall into place when they can. Um,
Yeah.
what's incredible about you, and I don't know, it's a difficult one to talk about, but your humility. I get such a sense of, humility from you and honesty. And has that kind of just come naturally, or have you kind of like, that's something I've wanted to work on from all these workshops?
I think both. I think naturally, especially with my parents that have obviously played
Mm-hmm.
a big role in that raising me up, but also trying to look at examples from rugby,
Yep.
from South Africa, for example, or the All Blacks,
Yep.
or other athletes, um, and from our coach that is now in charge, showing us that way. So I wrote a quote where they say a good coach can change a game, a great coach can change a life,
Hmm.
and that's something pretty strong because he's doing that at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And what is really cool about leaving a legacy or is yeah leaving the shirt in a better place is trying to like I feeling that it works. And um, what I like, for example, as a quote, is the legacy you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others. And that's pretty
Ah.
strong because
Mm-hmm.
obviously, as a sportsman, you're trying to win trophies and trying to be the best. And but yeah, at the end of the day, if you won a couple of trophies, but if you've had an impact on the people around you, that's even stronger, I think.
That's beautiful. It's yeah, that giving and that team spirit just seems like the only thing that's on your mind.
No,
I love it. Also, kind of talk to me a little side story about what happened, like becoming a Red Bull athlete. I think that's super cool, especially in
no.
hockey. Like that's crazy.
Mm. Yeah, well, hockey, we were the first team ever in history to become world champion in team sports.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty special.
Yeah.
And what is cool about Red Bull is that they've been there actually all along the way. So as a young athlete, they supported me already.
No way.
I had kind of a ritual to drink a Red Bull and eat a banana before every game. They picked it up, and then from one thing came the other, and then they started to um, yeah be an important partner, which
Mm-hmm.
actually we don't have the same finances as in football, for example,
Mm-hmm.
but we have revenues from the club is one thing, from the national team, and from
Mm-hmm.
individual sponsors. So to be able to live this professional life, full professional life, we need also really
Mm-hmm.
good individual sponsors, and they literally gave me wings to achieve my dream. So I'm very grateful, actually.
That's so cool. Wow, I love it. Thank you for everything so far, and it's been a brilliant conversation. I think everyone's gonna love it. But we always end on this one question, which is what makes you more than a field hockey player? What makes you more than an athlete?
Mm.
Like, kind of what makes you human?
Yeah, yeah, we touched base, and it's something. It's an ongoing process, and at the end of my career, I would hope that people can reflect and say that they miss obviously the hockey player, but they miss the human parts,
Hmm.
like the guy who is coaching them, giving them advice. So I'm aware that I received a lot to be able to be the person that I am today, from the club, from the national team, from coaches, from teammates around me. Uh, I just would like to do the same, and I hope that I can just add value to the next generation, and that hockey in general can continue to thrive, and that in a couple of years' time I'll be sitting in the stands watching the Red Lions and the KG Dragons, and hopefully they will continue to be successful for a very long time.
Amazing. I love the answer. I think it goes back to the fundamental idea that when you're focused on others, you can't suffer in yourself.
Mm.
And that self-centeredness is the source of suffering. So, I don't see how you suffer at all, man. No, it's brilliant. Um,
Separate training.
yeah.
We still train pretty hard though.
Oh, no, that's brilliant.
It's part of it.
Of course, of course. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I think, it's beautiful to see what you're doing and to focus on all those different parts to your game as a person, obviously, and being the best person. It not only adds so much to your performance, but you can just see how much it would give to other people. So it's, I'm pretty jealous of, of not being in your team. But yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on and giving us your kind of wise words and different insights into the team, because yeah, that team environment sounds incredible. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Brilliant.
It was a pleasure to have a nice discussion.